The biggest storyline of this whole offseason has been the running back position, its value, and players not getting paid. Today, we're going to be going over the running back position, looking at some in depth stuff on the position, its value, and how they should be getting paid. Now, this all started this offseason. It's been kind of lingering for a couple years with a lot of running backs not getting paid in franchise tags. And now we have a couple big running backs in Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, some big running backs who didn't get the contracts they thought they were going to be getting this offseason. And now they're coming out, they're talking about the running back position being underpaid and undervalued in the NFL. And this led to a Zoom call with some of the top running backs from Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and J.K. Dobbins? Nonetheless, we're here to answer the question of running back value. But before we do that, we need to see what the real question is. Because the question isn't how valuable is a running back. That has nothing to do with the contract and the situation right now. The real question is how valuable is an expensive running back compared to a cheap running back? Because when it comes to salaries, it's not about how valuable that position is. It's about how much more valuable you are versus a cheap guy. And that's the question we're going to be focusing on today and looking at, is it actually more valuable and how did this happen? In order to do this, let's go back to the start. You can see here we have the average top 10 salary cap hits from 2023 of the main positions on offense from O-line, receiver, tight end, and quarterback. You can see here running back was in a group with receivers and tackles in very similar pay in the early 2000s. And then there's a group below of like interior linemen, tight end, and then quarterbacks on its own tier. So you kind of had those three tiers, and running back was valued at the same value as a tackle or a receiver. But then something happens between 2011 and 2015 where we see a shift where running back drops. And then when the other positions go back up, running back continues to drop. You can see here in this closer view from 2012 to 2019, running back goes from right up there with tackle pay, dropping down beneath interior lineman and tight end pay between 2012 and 2016. You can look at like about 2015 is when the big crossover happens, when that drops. According to a Sanford article in 2020, the first team to lead the analytics movement was the Philadelphia Eagles in 2014, where Doug Peterson came out and said that all decisions for the Eagles will be informed by analytics. So we can see 2014 was around the beginning of the huge analytics boost. Now, analytics have been growing and growing every year, but 2014 was that big movement. I don't think it's a coincidence that running back value starts to drop right around that exact year in 2014. We can see this drop in terms of salary tag too. Franchise tags, sorry. Franchise tags take some of the top contracts and give like an average, and then you can franchise tag with that money. The running back franchise tag in 2015 was 10.95 million. This year, the running back franchise tag was 10.09 million. So the franchise tag has almost dropped $1 million for the running back in the last 8 years. Every other single position in the NFL has gone up in that time frame. So the real question is this the right move? Is this the wrong move? And why is it like this? If we go over to PFF WAR, this is PFF's wins above replacement, which is basically a measurement of how much better is a player than his replacement. So basically, how much more valuable are you than the guy we can go pick up off the street right now? You can see by this chart, these are the top positions in the brackets. You can see those are the top positions. So the running back, the top 24 positions, the average wins above replacement is 0.08. Receiver, 0.42 for the top 48. You can see the rest of the values. The highest is actually tight end, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because there's the difference makers like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert, well, hopefully Kyle Pitts, are just so much different than an average tight end that their wins above replacement are good. So this isn't how valuable is the running back position. It's how valuable are top 24 running backs compared to the average guy you can find off the street. And that's a staggering number. we should not just look at this as the end all be all, like, oh, hey, that's bad, they're that value. But the fact that the WAR is 0.08 for a running back and is 0.39 for an interior lineman. We saw in that last graph, centers are currently paid around the same as running backs right now. We'll get to some free agent contracts later, but actually generally less. And the fact that a running back who's asking for way more pay, according to WAR, of the top 24 compared to the top 60 offensive linemen, is only about a quarter as valuable as that interior offensive lineman. That's a staggering difference in one of the big movements that we've seen in the running back. Some other numbers, according to the CBS articles, teams with a top 10 cap hit running back have a winning record just over 500, the worst among 6 position groups. Only 37% of top 10 running backs made the playoffs. An average offensive efficiency rank for a top 10 running back offense is ranked 17th. So you don't see any major differences between having a top 10 running back and not. In fact, you're only at 37%, only 37% of these teams with top 10 running backs on average made the playoffs, which is the worst. All of those are the worst out of any position group in any of them. And now you start to get the question, why is this? And we see the game is changing. Passes is becoming a lot more valuable than runs, and we've seen it from running backs age to now the quarterback age. And according to PFF, some stats to help back that up, a perfectly blocked run play is worth 0.7 EPA, which is expected points added, which is basically saying how many points are you adding on a run play to your score. That's at 0.27, and a perfectly blocked pass play is worth 0.2 EPA. So you're wondering, why are we passing the ball? Running plays are actually worth more. But the issue is, hear what I said, a perfectly blocked run play versus a perfectly blocked pass play. A perfectly blocked run play, while more valuable, only happens 35% of the time, 34.9 to be exact, whereas a perfectly blocked pass play occurs 68.9% of the time. So almost twice as likely to have a perfectly blocked pass play than a run play with similar EPA. So pass plays are just so much more efficient because you need so many more pieces to work perfectly to have a good run play versus a pass game. We see the pass grow more and more every single year, and it's just devaluing that running game and that running position over the years as we go along. So in order to kind of view the difference of these positions even more, let's look at the 22-23 free agency class from this past year. Look at some of the guys free agency, their WAR in the contracts they got. As we can see here from this chart, we have running backs on the left and just some other position players on the right here who signed contracts or franchise tags. You can see the running backs here. Those are their ranks per position in the parentheses in that WAR column. So for example, Josh Jacobs had a WAR of 0.28, which is number 1 amongst running backs. Saquon had one of 0.22, which is number 4 among running backs. And you can see the contracts associated with these players. So running back WARs range anywhere from 0.28 is the number 1 win above replacement running back in the league in Josh Jacobs. And then they go down all the way down to a guy like David Montgomery, who was 0.13, which was the 22nd ranked running back. Now, you can see on the other side with the other positions, we have guards, centers, tight ends, which are some of the ones I wanted to show because those are guys getting paid similar range right now as running backs that running backs are complaining about. And then you have guys like receiver and quarterback. You can see quarterback, Geno Smith, 2.84. He was only the 8th ranked quarterback, but he is almost 10 times the WAR of a guy like Josh Jacobs. So there's a reason they get that money. But you're looking at, okay, running back value. Let's dig into this. Josh Jacobs was the number 1 running back in WAR with 0.28. That is almost equivalent to the number 9 guard in Isaac Seumalo or the number 4 center in Ethan Posich. Yet, Isaac Seumalo, with a very similar, within 0.01 win above replacement as him, got an $8 million deal. Ethan Posich, with a very similar, got a $6 million deal. And yet, as a public, Isaac Seumalo, that's a good deal for Isaac Seumalo. He got a good payday at $8 million. Yet, if Josh Jacobs were to get an $8 million deal, people would go crazy saying he is so underpaid. How did Josh Jacobs only get that? He's not even probably going to accept that kind of deal. And then you want to say, okay, yeah, but like look at receivers. What are receivers getting paid? Josh Jacobs, being the number one running back, had almost the exact same WAR as the number 30 wide receiver in Jacoby Myers, who got paid $11 million, another contract that Josh Jacobs might not even take if he got offered $11 million. And that's the number 30 wide receiver. So you can just see the difference between the value of a running back and a receiver. So if you look at these numbers combined in these wars, Josh Jacobs, the number one supposed most valuable running back, is trying to get more money than a receiver who's ranked 30th, yet still has the same WAR. And yeah, maybe they get a little more, but these guys are asking for big deals, and you have interior offensive linemen who are providing almost the same value over their replacements to a team, and yet they're getting a smidge of the money that running backs want. So running backs, as valuable as the run game can be, it's just in the new game with all the analytics, running backs are just becoming less valuable. And now this is where I got to take a step back, and you guys are probably like, hey, you're hating on running backs. You don't like running backs. I want to see running backs get paid. I would love to see everyone get paid. These guys work hard. They take all the hits. They deserve money. I am not saying that. But I am saying the NFL is a business, and the business runs on models. And these models and numbers are telling these owners and GMs that paying a running back big money is bad business. And as you're saying, okay, so the running back position is screwed. No one's going to want to play running back because they don't get money if they take all the big hits. There is one thing that they can do, and we've seen proof of this working. All these running backs are complaining that running backs aren't getting paid, but that's not true. One running back has gotten paid. Who was that running back? Christian McCaffrey. You're wondering, why did Christian McCaffrey get paid and these other guys aren't? Well, think about what Christian McCaffrey brings that these other guys don't. He's a glorified receiver on the field that can bring value so much in the receiving game, and he got paid. And that's where running backs need to shift their focus, because the running game and a pure running back just is not that valuable to the league anymore. Blocking is becoming, we're starting to see that blocking is way more important than running backs, and running backs have to bring value as a receiver now, because then we're not only looking at a running back in just the running game and how good they are running the ball versus others, but now they're getting a receiver, and we've already seen in our past graphs how much more valuable receiver is one of the top like 4 most valuable positions, up there with quarterback, corner, and tackle. One of the most valuable positions in the entire NFL. So if you can even bring a little bit of value from that receiver, then running backs can become more valuable and get that money, but they're going to have to do it. And in conclusion, we kind of think about, why did this come about was one of the main questions I thought in the beginning. Why did this come about? And it's because we didn't have analytics before, and running backs were paid in a place they shouldn't have been. And now the market, once we got with analytics, the market has had to readjust, and running backs are now more fairly paid than they were before. They were just overpaid before. It's not like we're devaluing them anymore. We're bringing them back to where they should have been valued. They were overvalued, and now they're bringing back to where they should. And if you look at these numbers, technically, compared to tight ends and interior linemen, running backs are still being overpaid for the value that they bring. And it's a market readjustment that's a harsh reality, and I want to see players get paid, but it's the reality of the business that is the NFL, that running backs are not as valuable, and the markets had to readjust, and these teams are having to build their teams differently with a business mindset, because in the end of the day, that's what the NFL is. It's a business, and the running backs are not a good decision to pay big money on them, and the markets had to readjust, and it's causing a ripple, but it's just the business that has to be done. And I don't know exactly where we go from here, because running backs have a right to say they deserve more money, but at the same time, these businesses and these owners and these GMs have a right to say you don't bring even as much value as an interior lineman, who aren't complaining about their $8 million a year salaries.